Hey everyone, welcome to The Thoughtful Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Jen Amos, and today I have with me Sascha Janzen, who is a purpose-driven real estate entrepreneur based in Frankfurt, Germany, where he runs Janzen Co to build and manage real estate investment portfolios for other purpose-driven entrepreneurs and families. He and his team have worked with renowned professional investment firms such as the Blackstone Group, GE Capital, or the Royal Bank of Scotland. Sascha is 49, married with 3 kids between 1 and 10, wow, and is on his journey to build a lasting legacy for his family and the next generations. He hosts the True Wealth Project podcast to inspire others to build their own legacy. And you can learn more about him at janzenco.com. That's spelled JANZENCO.com. Sascha, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, very thrilled to have you. I love how in your bio, you are really focused on purpose-driven entrepreneurs and families. And so let's start with that. What led you or what inspires you to just focus on people who maybe, want to do more than just live life, but live a life of intention and purpose?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I mean, it wasn't something that was there all of a sudden. It kind of developed over a number of years. And I think what really sparked it off was 2 things. When I set up my business back in 2004, and actually prior to that too, I just noticed that a gradual decline in values, common decency, and just, interhuman behavior generally. And I think it was just more pronounced, or at least I noticed it more distinctly after we had our first child, so back in 2010. Wow. Mm-hmm. And because, all of a sudden my entire thinking sort of, it sort of extended by an entire generation, because, I started asking myself the question, why am I doing this? And how are my kids going to live when I'm no longer there? So it basically opened up a whole range of questions that started me on that journey, basically, to think about, what's my purpose? What is other people's purpose? And how can I make sure that my kids inherit a world worth living in, basically? Mm-hmm.
Wow. No, I think that's really powerful. And I tend to find that a lot of people start to take their life a little more seriously when they have kids. And so the fact that you mentioned, in 2010, you have your first child and you're like, whoa, because essentially that's your heart out in the world. And it's like, are you going to, give that? I think there's something about wanting to create a better future for them. And we only think of that when we have something that literally we created, out of that. And today you have 3 kids under 10. And so I can imagine, that you have more conviction and passion and purpose to do what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it starts with our behavior, in the environment and how we treat our environment, and it's it basically extends into all areas of life. And there are so many areas where you can ask yourself the question, what's the world going to look like in 20, 30, 50 years? Mm-hmm. And those are time horizons that my kids will hopefully experience, and hopefully that they will be in a world that is worth living in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So in the meantime, Sascha, we are in a very interesting time in history with the pandemic. I'm just curious to know, what does the new normal look like for you nowadays?
I don't know whether we've actually found the new normal yet.
Still figuring it out.
I think we're still very much in the midst of it. And I also think that economic effects and effects on society are still in the making. So I don't think we've seen and heard the last of the pandemic and its effects. So I think really that it's very hard to tell where it's all going to end up. It's just everything is in flux, basically. So I'm not sure. Our business has not really been affected very much so far. But properties need to be managed in good and bad times. So that's a good thing for us, basically. Yeah. But at the same time, of course, if you think about the investment aspects, it's become more difficult to find interesting assets, because first of all, the future of a lot of assets is basically in question. Right. And also at the same time, the prices have gone up, at least in Germany. And I'm not quite sure what it's like in other countries, but in Germany, we've still seen a rise in prices across many sectors. And I think that's basically almost panic buying.
Mm-hmm.
Investors want to invest their money. There's a lot of money pouring into the markets and trying to find a home. So it's not becoming any easier.
Wow. Yeah, no, I can only imagine, but properties need to be managed, as you mentioned. So at least you and your company have that going for you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're still looking ahead in a positive manner, but we will be affected one way or another by some effects, of course. I mean, we've had tenant delinquencies here and there, but it's not been too bad. So it's knock on wood, and hopefully it'll be okay. But you never know. I'm sure we will feel some of the effects at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's go back a little bit, Sascha, and talk about, I know that I have in my notes here that you have been in business since 2004, which is absolutely a long time. So congratulations. That's 16 years now at this time. Wow. How did you start? What did life look like for you before 2004 and before you decided to start your company?
Well, I studied real estate and finance in London. And after that, I came to Frankfurt to work for big name firms like JLL, then GE Capital. And before I set up, together with one of my former bosses, the Frankfurt office for an international real estate advisory firm. Mm-hmm. And then after about a year or two, we just had different opinions about the way we work together and the way the business was supposed to be managed. So it was for me at the time as the junior partner in the equation to leave, and that was the point when I decided to set up my own business. So I've had a very good career up until then, and then from one day to the next, I had to take care of myself. So I started from my living room basically. And quite soon realized that wasn't really for me. So I rented a broom cupboard-sized office in the Frankfurt Station District area, which was very interesting in itself. Mm-hmm. But then, things went from there. I took on my first employee, and then we had the second, and then we had to move offices because everything was too small. We moved to nicer offices and so on and so forth. And today we're a small team of 7. We have nice offices in Frankfurt's West End, and things are generally okay and good.
Yeah. Oh, that's really awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. I think it's interesting how you had the option to work from home, and you're like, no, I don't like this. And so you decided to get an office, and I think that's really awesome. Has things changed since the pandemic? Like, do you tell your employees to work from home now?
Well, because we're a small team and we have spacious enough offices, we do still come into the office. But even prior to the pandemic, at least one of our team members, used to work from home for part of the week. So she continues that basically. And so I leave it open to people if they want to work from home or not, but people tend to want to come to the office, which
very cool.
Is a good sign.
Yeah, no, that's a really good sign that, your employees you have some kind of company culture where they enjoy being there. Because I think a lot of employees who are working home nowadays, they're actually liking it. They're like, oh, I like being at home. I like, being in my PJs and being comfortable. I like spending time, with my kids. But I can imagine that when everyone is home, it is hard to concentrate. And so it's great that you kind of gave them that safe haven of an office, to still come in and set those healthy professional boundaries.
Yeah, I think it's also because people, they want the social interaction. They want to, talk to their teammates and exchange views and just basically bounce problems off each other and that sort of thing, and just have a chat generally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about your company, Sascha. I have here in our notes that you provide real estate service in Germany for investors. And so if investors do work with you, what does that process look like in terms of providing that service?
Well, we work on different levels. I mean, to start with, we just basically provide a plain vanilla property management service. So anyone who's got an investment property in Germany, could come to us and say, would you like to manage it for us? And we would happily do that. But over and above that, we also provide asset management services. So basically, we don't just collect the rent and do the service charge reconciliation and that sort of thing, but we also take on the owner's perspective and develop a business plan for an asset and then execute that on behalf of the owner. Mm-hmm. And we even go further than that, because we also started back in 2006-07 it was, we started investing ourselves, and we generally do that together with partners. And there we actually take part of the ownership for the asset, and which is basically very good for alignment of interests.
Mm-hmm.
So
awesome.
we have the same interest as the partner who invests with us, and then we provide the services in developing the business plan and executing that and managing the property on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like a very collaborative experience.
It is, yeah. I mean, basically, we develop these business plans. We have an idea. Sometimes the owner has an idea, and then we sit together and decide on what the actual strategy is going to be like.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So tell me, in the 15, 16 plus years now that you've been in business, what would you say you are most proud of with your company?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, I'm proud that we're still alive. I've seen.
Yeah, that's a good start.
I've seen many start up and close their business after a few years because
Absolutely.
It just became a bit too cumbersome.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've not had huge, enormous growth, but we've had organic, healthy growth. In terms of the team size, in terms of the assets under management. We have a pretty impressive list of reference clients that we've done some work for, even though we are a very small business. And so I think generally we've done quite well. And
Mm-hmm.
I've started to, back then in 2004, to build a business for the long term. And we're still on that journey. But I think we're things are paying off now, and it's just apparent in the team too. I mean, as I said, they like coming into the office, which I'm thrilled about that. It's a really I like seeing that. That's the kind of business I wanted to build back then, and I think we may not be quite where I wanted to be, but we're getting there.
Yeah. And I think, just going back to the company culture, from what it sounds like, the fact that your team likes to show up and likes to be in the office, I think will withstand, a lot of obstacles that a business can go through. I mean, the last thing you want to do is deal with disgruntled employees and disgruntled teammates.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, that gives me great pleasure to see that. And I think, our clients, I think it's fair to say, are quite happy too. And it's not always been everything has been successful, but we've made mistakes here and there and had bumps on the road. But I think the main thing that I take away from my experience as an entrepreneur so far is be persistent, and you will win at some point.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know about Janzen Co?
Well, I think the general gist has come across. I've maybe as part of my journey discovering purpose and having more of a focus on that. I would like to mention that I also started a podcast.
Yes, you did. Yes.
Focuses around those areas, and it basically covers aspects of financial structuring. In our case, it has a lot to do with property, but it doesn't have to, and it covers the areas of impact and purpose, and succession or legacy building. Mm-hmm. And those are the areas that I explore in the podcast. And it started off initially for myself, because I wanted to explore those areas for myself and to build the legacy for myself and my family. But then, I discovered that, it's great fun to let others participate in that. So I think podcasting is a great medium for that.
Yeah. I think, and especially in today's times, that I feel like a lot of people have slowed down and they're looking to maybe re-educate themselves or learn something new. Podcasting is a great medium to, consume your content and your education. And so, and so I think that's really awesome that you host the True Wealth Project podcast. So another thing that I wanted to ask you, Sascha, is let's go ahead for people. I know that you mentioned quite often in our conversation, and it was mentioned in your bio, that you like to focus on purpose-driven clients. How do you qualify your clients, and how do you know, what do you do to kind of vet that, they are purpose driven?
Yeah, well, I mean, generally, I just have a conversation, and in the conversation, it becomes apparent quite quickly how somebody is motivated and what is important for the person, and so you read between the lines basically. But we do have a measurement in place, in the sense that we want our clients to actively support at least one of the United Nations Global Development Goals.
Wow.
That there are these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and we basically ask our clients to pick one and say, this is the one that I'm really keen about and want to support, if they don't do it already. And depending on how that goes, we then take a decision as to whether we think there's a match and we fit, basically.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I really admire that you live a life of purpose and intention, and you reflect that in your business. I was thinking, lately, because it sounds like a lot of people in business want to, do it more purposely, for lack of a better term. And I'm wondering if it's because, we've gone past like the industrial age, or we've gone past a time where it's not just about being task oriented. It's about, being human, and not let the business be the top priority in your life, but, use your business as a way to support your dreams, or be a vehicle for you to pursue your dreams and really live a meaningful life.
Yeah, I think times have changed, and I mean, a few decades ago in the Western world, we had the churches, and I mean, and I know it's not the same all over the world, and I think in the US, churches have probably still more of a role to play than in Europe, and possibly in Germany in particular. But I think there's really the decline of churches and religion generally, and spirituality in generally, has led to a gap, basically, and people are looking for meaning, and that needs to be filled somehow. And I think things like the pandemic, basically, they bring that to the forefront, and I think a lot of people are waking up to that need, basically, and are trying to find ways to live that in their lives.
Yeah, and I think it's powerful. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Sorry. We're just basically trying to work with that and help that and encourage that and empower people to find their purpose, to live it, and to basically, in terms of the real estate services we provide, basically, we want to make sure that people have peace of mind and can concentrate on their actual purpose and in life, basically.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, and appreciate you explaining that more, because spirituality has evolved, I think, in the recent decades, as you mentioned, with the church, and how people are seeking for something different or something more, or really like challenging what they already believed in. And so part of that is feeling a sense of purpose and really understanding your identity fully, rather than maybe trusting something else. I mean, I won't get into any more detail than that, but I appreciate you saying that, and how you said that, in order for you to pre-qualify your clients, you try to read in between the lines in your conversation with them, and try to hear if, what their goals and their values are. And so it's nice, because it really adds the human side to real estate, where I think for most of us, when we think real estate, we think houses, we think buildings, but we don't think about the people that live in them, or the people that run them, or, manage them. And so I really like that you add that human, compassionate component, to your business.
Yeah, well, we're also trying to find ways to integrate that type of thinking into our day-to-day operations, which we're still at the beginning of that journey. But like, just for example, we switched all the electricity supplies that we control as a property manager to renewable energy sources, and those are small steps that we are trying to implement more and more into our day-to-day operations. We're far from perfect. We've just even started on that journey, but we're getting there, and it's also quite exciting to see how the team is coming on board with that, and they're coming up with their own ideas on how we can do that, how we can avoid plastic, and how we can install more energy efficient heating systems, etc. I mean, there's many angles that we try to implement. But it's quite exciting to see how that evolves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sascha, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Before we go, any parting advice or closing thoughts that you want to share with our entrepreneurs and small business owners listening to The Thoughtful Entrepreneur?
Well, generally, I think my advice to other business owners always is be persistent and you will win. And also, I think I can only encourage other business owners to think about their purpose and try to really flush it out and actually live it, because it's just so much more fun than just going to work, trying to make as much money as possible, and it's much more fulfilling. And that's what we're all about at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, we're not robots. Exactly, we're people with feelings. We want to have a sense of purpose, and we want to feel like we're doing something good for the world. And part of that is really having that introspective talk with yourself and really asking yourself, what do you really want in this life, and what do you want to leave behind? So Sascha, it's been an absolute pleasure having you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure from my side too.
Yeah. And with that said, to our listeners, this is Sascha Janzen. He is the owner and founder of Janzen Co. You can learn more about him and his company at janzenco.com. Once again, that's spelled JANZENCO.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll chat with you in the next episode. Tune in next time.